But as far as how he is as a person, in the one time that I met him, we're about to do the interview, and he looked at me. He was like, "Yo, you nervous, bro?" And I'm like, "How can you tell?" And he was like, I'm really adept to, learning people's body language, because he has to do that, when he's in the octagon. So I thought that was funny. But he seems like a very calculated man as far as, his image when it comes to doing interviews. And I feel like he's very confident and maybe borderline cocky. But I played with his brother, Chandler Jones, at Syracuse. So that kind of broke the ice when we were doing the interview. He seemed like a cool guy. Obviously he's had a lot of issues and and troubles, most recently. So I think he's a complicated individual. But I had a great time, talking with him and getting to know about his story and getting back in the ring.
So who is your influencer and role model in the sports industry that helped you out to get to this point?
Somebody that I met, or just like in general?
Like one of your coworkers or someone in general.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Darren Haynes. He works at WSA 9. He's a sports director there. He used to work at ESPN. He was a really big influence for me when I started out my career in Wisconsin, Wausau, Wisconsin, middle of nowhere. I just loved the way he approached his craft and the different tips and advice that he gave me to become a better broadcaster. You got Jay Harris as well. He's a very smooth, classy guy, really witty as well. And then obviously, the late Stuart Scott. I looked up Scott Van Pelt, Mike Tirico, Bob Costas. All those guys were really inspiring to me, and I wanted to emulate, some of their ways.
Yeah, speaking of Jay Harris, I had the opportunity of interviewing him for my podcast last week. So Jay Harris came on last week. So he was awesome. Yeah. So he was awesome. That was a great interview with him. But let's talk about here basketball for a little bit. I mean, obviously the season hasn't come back yet. But before this whole pandemic started, what are your thoughts on the two local teams, the Nets and the Knicks, so far?
A lot of dysfunction, man. A lot of dysfunction, because you have the Nets who fire their coach Kenny Atkinson after they were seemingly on their way to the playoffs, and you knew that he was getting maybe a little pushback from players. They weren't playing that well, like really close to the stretch where he got fired, and you just wonder, did it have to do with Kyrie and KD and their influence? Because whatever, I don't care what anybody says, they have an impact, they have an influence, they have power to a certain degree about who is going to be the coach going in. It's kind of ironic because KD said he liked the style that Kenny Atkinson had, the style that he implemented into the next organization. And so for them to, fire him, not even before KD and Kyrie get on the floor together, is kind of weird. And then the Knicks, I mean, where do you start? They have a press conference 10 games into the season. I remember Ian Begley and I, he's an SNY NBA insider. After they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, like they got whipped by like 30 points. It was like, they're going to have the management's going to have a press conference. Like, what is going on? And at that point, we knew David Fizdale. It was just only a matter of time. It wasn't if it was going to happen. It was like when it was going to happen that he would be fired and he was going to be the scapegoat. I mean, they signed like 4 power forwards, during the offseason. What do you expect the roster is going to do with that type of lineup? So I think I have more optimism with the Nets when KD comes back and Kyrie gets healthy. The Knicks, it's going to be a long season. Long season next year, long season the year after that probably. But I think they need to get a coach who understands the New York culture, somebody that obviously has a great basketball pedigree. And I think Mark Jackson would be a good choice. Shoot, even maybe bring back Jeff Van Gundy.
Right. What's up, Mike? Mike Curtis has joined. He's a sports reporter. Yeah, sports reporter too. I'm interviewing him on Friday.
Yeah, I met Mike at this NABJ conference last year. He's really dope.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But so let's get to the Nets first, like the Nets point of view, because I'm a New York Knicks fan, unfortunately, so I got to deal with the pain with the Knicks. But I've been watching more Nets games before this whole thing started. So what do you think? I mean, obviously, if they have a season, they'll go right to the playoffs. So what are your expectations for the Nets, because they're in the playoff race? So what are your expectations for the Nets in the playoffs, especially?
Well, my expectations, I think they get bounced in the in the first round. They're not gonna have Kyrie. I don't think it would have been smart for him to come back anyway. If his shoulder healed up fully 100%, just like this ain't the season. You know what I'm saying? Wait for KD to come back next year to be fully reloaded. So I think they would have gone. They would have been up against the Milwaukee Bucks probably, because they were teaming on that line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like one game they're out of the playoffs, next game AC. Going to the 7th seed or whatever. So I think they would have done a decent job against the Bucks. Like they probably would have won one game. Without Kyrie in the lineup, like Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, they can only do so much. As great as those guys are, they're not superstars. And I think the Nets, it was always going to be the next year. Like it wasn't going to be this year that the Nets really made a big splash. So with the KD potentially coming back next year, and what do you think their ceiling will be for next year? Because I feel like they need to add a couple more pieces to the bench, in my opinion. No, they do. They need somebody. I think their ceiling next year, if Kyrie's fully healthy, KD's fully healthy, it would be getting to probably the conference finals. I think year one is always interesting. Like they don't have a lineup like the Heat had in 2010 with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. These are two superstars. Then you got Spencer Dinwiddie, who can get you buckets on a nightly basis, Karis LeVert as well. But when you mesh all those guys together, you're not going to have all four of those guys on the floor. It's going to be a little bit harder. So I think they could get to the conference finals. I don't think they would get to the finals, especially if Giannis stays with Milwaukee. And then Toronto, they've been done a fabulous job even without Kawhi Leonard. It's really remarkable the job that they have done. So I think they get to the conference finals. And then also, look, what type of KD are we getting? This is if KD is fully healthy and he gets his prime form back.
Right.
If we get that back, then I think conference finals. If not, they still could be they may lose in the second round. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't foresee them making it to the NBA Finals next year. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. So my next question here for the Nets. What are your thoughts on Karis LeVert as a player? And I feel like he can be that potential third star they're missing. But do you see them training him in the offseason to get that third star to pair up with KD and Kyrie? I mean, DeAndre Jordan is there too, but I'm just saying I think they need another elite player to pair them up.
I think Kyrie said it in more ways or less about we need other pieces. Like the squad that we have now is not equipped to win a championship, and obviously that got a lot of people angry and upset, probably even some of his teammates. I think Karis LeVert, he might be on the trading block. Like I think when it comes to who's more valuable, I think Spencer Dinwiddie is more valuable than Karis LeVert, even though Karis really stepped up when Spencer was hurt, when Kyrie was hurt. He really showed, his improvements in his game and getting the ball. But he's not somebody that you can rely on to hit a game-winning shot. That's not somebody that you're going to. Spencer Dinwiddie either. But I think Karis is the odd guy out when they're looking for another star to get to. So it'd be great, for them to keep Karis. But I don't know how likely that is in the offseason because it's all about championships, and I don't think he fits into that as of right now.
So what has Spencer Dinwiddie? Obviously, he has an inspiring background with the national career. But what has he meant to the Brooklyn Nets so far throughout his Nets career?
He's been a guy who's kind of ruffled some feathers as well. like Kyrie with the New York Knicks. The comments he made about them, I think it was last year, at the beginning of the season. I like his attitude. I like what he brings to the table for Brooklyn. He's somebody that is really crafty with his scoring ability. He's a great driver, great scorer. I think he could improve maybe his mid-range game. But this is a guy who I feel like embodies, the Nets culture and what they were trying to preach before Kenny Atkinson got fired. So he's an integral part, to this Nets organization. And he'll be relied on, especially when, everybody's double teaming KD or Kyrie.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because now my next question here is with the coaching position. Obviously, I was shocked that the same as you that when they got rid of Kenny Atkinson. So I brought up an outside of the box candidate to Christian Winfield, who I interviewed last time, who works for the Brooklyn Nets. I brought up Greg Popovich to him as a possible candidate for the Nets job. What do you think?
Organization?
That's the only coach I can think of that can hold KD and Kyrie accountable.
Nah, I mean he gets people in line. He's like the Bill Belichick of the NBA. He doesn't play that nonsense. No drama, no egos really. Everybody understands their mission and their roles, and they stay within that. I think he would be a great coach for KD and Kyrie. Do I think it's likely that happens? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think a guy like Mark Jackson is more likely than somebody like Popovich. And I think they would respect. I think KD and Kyrie would respect Mark Jackson a lot. I think a lot of NBA players hold Jackson in a high regard, so they would do a lot of great things. If those three were paired up together.
Yeah, but I know it's too early to tell. But do you see like the Nets possibly going college route, like what the Celtics did with Brad Stevens, finding that guy with like an unknown guy that like Brad Stevens that knows
it's fair game to be traded. Honestly, just the way things are going, with the nucleus of Kyrie and KD and DeAndre Jordan, because they took less money for DeAndre to come there with them. So this is really their whole pack, their whole plan, really. So he could be inserted into the starting lineup. But yeah, Jared Allen's going to get tossed around at this point, from Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He doesn't have that strength, like you said. But I think the Nets should put more faith in him because he could be one of the best centers in the game if they actually decided to develop him a little bit more and not decide to trade him.
Interesting. But now let's switch to the Knicks here. Where to start, like you said earlier. But I want to get to the coaching situation first because the first name I brought up already was Kenny Atkinson because he's a perfect fit for the Knicks. He knows how to develop young players, and he would be a great systematic coach for the Knicks. So what do you think?
So it's not like he's an idiot. But then again, you have to change your whole mentality when it comes to being a GM compared to being an agent because you're not just representing players anymore. And the other aspect is, will he be a puppet to James Dolan, right? As long as James Dolan is running that franchise and he wants some control, I feel very concerned about the future of the Knicks and them being able to be successful. Time will tell. I know it's not a sexy answer, but time will tell. And I think James Dolan is really the key piece here. If he decides to lay back like he's done with the Rangers, I think the Knicks would be in good shape under Leon Rose. But there's still, a lot of uncertainties.
Yeah, but so now to the point guard situation. I don't know if Dennis Smith can be that long-term point guard, but what do you see what the Knicks doing with the point guard situation?
Brother, maybe I need to be point guard because they have not had solid rotation, solid group of guys that can, run the offense, night in and night out. Dennis Smith, it's really sad to see his development decrease. I know he lost his mom this season, which was horrible. But even before that, he really was very inconsistent. And he just looked I won't say disinterested, but he just didn't have that killer instinct, that drive that we're used to seeing in Dallas. And maybe that's because more was expected of him in New York as it was. With Dallas he was more of a high flyer, acrobatics, all the dunks. I think Frank Ntilikina, if he can get, he's a great defender, obviously with his length, his speed, his wingspan is crazy. I think he just needs to work on his jump shot. If he works on his jump shot and he understands the offense better, I think all it is, man, it's about giving your players confidence. And if you have a short leash on them, obviously they're not going to be confident or feeling free to do what they do best, do what you want them to do. And if they make a mistake, it's like, okay, you're going to figure it out instead of you make a mistake, we're taking you out. Mm-hmm. The point guard position is one of the biggest needs for them to get a consistent player for the Knicks.
Oh,
we saw what happened. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good.
Okay. No, I was going to say your friend, your coworker, Steve Gallups joined.
Oh, yeah, Steve Gallups, yeah. Good old Steve. He's the man. He is the man. You interview him too?
Not yet. I'm going to reach out to him later on, but
okay.
This week I can't because I'm like busy. A lot of interviews coming up, but so obviously the Knicks are. For me, I think it's going to take for them to take at least 2 years. But what do you expect? Depending whoever they hire as head coach, how long do you think they can compete in this division, the Atlantic Division?
How long? I'd say give it a 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years because they got all these guys on 1 year deals. With an option for a second, a team option. So basically, maybe half the team is going to be on a different team. Next year, just because they didn't sign anybody to any long-term deals. I think it'll take 2 to 3 years, and honestly, I think it's going to be through the draft. That's how they're going to build and make sure they have smart selections and good people who are in charge of scouting these college draft prospects as well as the G League guys. So I'd say give it 2 to 3 years, leaning on the 3 years, just because we've seen this time and time again what has happened to the Knicks franchise with Dolan running the show. I give it 3 years.
So speaking of these draft prospects, we just found out today that Shams tweeted saying LaMelo Ball has declared for the draft, same as Cole Anthony. So like all these prospects, what do you think? What do you see in LaMelo's game? Do you think he can translate his game to the next level?
If you asked me this like a few years ago when he was balling for Chino Hills, I'd be like, I don't know. I feel like he still's got a lot of growth to develop. But now what we've seen, what he's doing, was he in Australia? Was it Australia, right?
I think Australia,
yeah. Dude's a bucket. And not only is a bucket, but he's shown his ability to pass and distribute the ball. Like he's not sure he takes those crazy shots from 40 feet. But I've seen so much more development in his game. His vision has improved. I think he's becoming a better teammate as well. So I think his game is going to translate great. I honestly am very impressed with how he's improved over these last few years, overseas as opposed to, going to the college route. He's still got to get that weight up, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put on a little bit of weight, but I think he needs to gain maybe 10 more pounds to really be able to hang with the big boys in the NBA.
So, and then also Cole Anthony. What do you see in him? Do you think his game is it? I don't know, because everybody's saying that he's like a combo guard. Do you see him as a point guard, shooting guard?
Yeah, no, I think he's a combo guard. And honestly, my biggest thing about most memorable game as a player, I'll start with that. West Virginia, 2011. West Virginia was ranked 12th in the nation. Nobody gave us a chance. Everybody was, hyping them up. And then we beat them by 15, 25 points, at the Carrier Dome. So that was an electric moment. Favorite game I've been to as a player or as a reporter? Yeah. Probably the Motown Miracle. The Kentucky-Wisconsin game in the Final Four when the Wisconsin Badgers finally dethroned took down the previously undefeated Kentucky Wildcats. That was one of the highlights of my career.
Thoughts on this Michael Jordan documentary so far?
Just confirms that he's the GOAT. Just confirms he's the GOAT, and it's really fascinating to see all the knowledge that these guys possess. It's like watching two people discuss in another language. When you saw the scene with Rodman and Jordan discussing, how they were going to react when Oakley did this or did that, it was just like, these guys are at another level. They don't even have 10% of that knowledge. And that's why it's, it's so fascinating to watch this documentary.
Who is the funniest person on SNY?
Funniest person on SNY? I would say probably Eamon McEnany. He's such a sarcastic guy. He's very witty as well with the one-liners. He's hilarious.
Favorite thing to do outside of your work?
Work out.
There you go. It's all about fitness.
Yes, sir. All about fitness, baby.
Favorite hip hop artist, old school and currently.
Favorite hip hop artist, old school. Gotta go with Tupac, old school, and then favorite now. Come on, J. Cole.
Yeah.
J. Cole. Yeah, J. Cole.
Cold world.
Cold world, man. Cold world. Who that? I got that
favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans all time. Yeah.
Favorite non-sports movie?
Favorite non-sports movie?
Yeah.
I would have to say, favorite. I watch so many sports movies. You know what? I'll say Pursuit of Happiness. Yeah, Pursuit of Happiness. Let's just go with that one.
Kawhi Leonard's laugh or Kevin Hart's laugh?
As far as who's has a funnier laugh?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely Kawhi.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Here's thoughts on Garrett Cole coming to the Yankees.
It really drastically improved their rotation. They needed, number one ace that they could rely on. Somebody will put them on their top and get them to the World Series. That's something that's plagued them these last few seasons. Very, very substantial decision by the Yankees to grab Garrett Cole.
Do you think? Do you think the Yankees are World Series contender? This year?
Yeah. I think they're a World Series contender. I think they're World Series contender really, every year. But this year, I think they're gonna be all right. I know they got a lot of injuries, but they've seemed to rally. It doesn't matter how many people get injured. They're always got backups. You know what I'm saying? They got a great farm system. But it's not looking good right now. With Domingo Germán, his suspension, James Paxton as well, Severino. So. But yeah, World Series contender.
Lou Young or Steve Harvey?
Come on, man, Lou Young all day. Lou Young.
Yo, I interviewed him yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. You sent me that, and funny because we played against each other. I actually didn't play in the game because I was injured, but we played against each other in high school. He went to Good Counsel. I went to St. John, so we were DMV rivals. Humbling, and it's really sad that they're not being compensated more fairly, and we just want you guys to know that we love you. We're here for you. We care about you. We want you to come back home to your families, your wives, your husbands, because you guys are the true heroes, the true people that are making, things work and making things work while we go through this, horrible crisis.
Yeah. So also, my cousin and I, we started a GoFundMe page for this whole situation for the frontline people in the local food businesses. If you don't mind, the link is in my bio on Instagram. If you can take a look at it and donate, if you don't mind, when you get a chance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure to take a chance, man. Take a look.
There he is, the great Chris Williamson from SNY TV. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and you do a great job as always. Keep up the great work, and you and your family stay safe.